with me if you want to live. You just don't turn it off!
Silent Rage was released in 1982, directed by Michael Miller and starring Chuck Norris, Toni Kalem, Stephen Keats, and Ron Silver. A sheriff tries to stop the killing spree of a psychopathic murderer who has the result of a secret genetic experimentation by an unethical scientist who has the ability to self-heal. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Jason. You're watching Backtrack Cinema, and thank you for joining me today for another Chuck Norris review, and today we're doing Silent Rage. Now, this movie has been coined Chuck Norris versus Michael Myers, and you can see why. It follows a lot of the beats of Halloween, for sure, even with our villain, with John Kirby and all that. But I think, you know what? I think this movie stands on its own a little, too. It deals with some Frankenstein themes, too. We have these doctors who are playing God, but never thinking of the consequences of their actions, really. You know what I mean? As a kid, I saw Silent Rage before I saw Halloween. So when I went and saw Halloween, I really never tied the two together until I started doing YouTube. I seen other people saying Silent Rage is like Halloween. Then I was like, when I saw Halloween, later on as a kid, I went, oh, and then when I returned to Silent Rage years later, I go, yeah, I could see all the similarities. Chuck Norris even shoots him out of a window 6 times. But it's fucking Chuck Norris. Of course I want to see Chuck Norris take on a Michael Myers-like character, you know what I mean? And as far as Chuck Norris' performances go, I think this is his first good performance. This is 1982. A lot of the movies in the 70s, I don't think he was terribly great. He was getting better, you know what I mean? I think Silent Rage really showed how much he could carry a movie as well. And then, of course, he did Lone Wolf McQuade, and the Missing in Action. You know, he just launched off after this, right? But the movie starts off with this really intense situation where you got this character of John Kirby living in this halfway house, and he just snaps one day. You know, he's on the phone with his doctor, who is Ron Silver, who says he just can't control what's inside. He's losing it, and then he just snaps and kills everyone in this halfway house, or kills the lady and this other dude, and Chuck Norris comes to apprehend him, right? And then John Kirby ends up getting killed, but then these scientists start playing God, and they inject him with something that allows him to heal. But I mean, the guy's mind was freaking broken, right? So not a good decision. But as a kid watching that opening scene, the opening scene terrified me when I was a kid, because John Kirby corners this woman in this house. He chops her up. You don't see anything. You just see the blood hit his face. And I guess that theater of the mind and the suggestion and all that just scared, to me, I saw a woman just chopped up into pieces, you know what I mean? But when I return to it, and even when I watch it now, I almost laugh at it now, because I can't believe I was scared of that. But the whole sequence is pretty great. We get good themes of this moral dilemma of, even though we can do this, should we do this? Should we play God? And we got 2 scientists who are all for this, because what it can do for people in the future. They got this guy who can heal, and you know, if they perfect this, then they can end sickness forever. You can prevent death, you can end disease, cure cancer. This is all this man's thinking of. This is the obsession. Then you got the psychologist, Ron Silver's character, who was John Kirby's, was his patient, saying this man's mind was already broken to begin with. We should not be doing this. This is morally wrong. Who knows what you're going to create? And then they create a monster who is absolutely unstoppable. So I like that. I like to see, it's not just a Chuck Norris versus Michael Myers. There's something to say in this movie, but they also surround it with Chuck Norris being a badass. This is Chuck Norris's horror film. The only thing that really makes this movie an action film is that you get a bar fight scene with these bikers, and it has nothing to do with the main plot. It's just so that Chuck Norris can do his thing, because that's what we want from Chuck Norris, right? And it is a badass scene, seeing him take out all these bikers in this bar. Great scene there. You get a little romance, too, between Chuck Norris and Toni Kalem. It's probably the hokey, the cheesy part of the whole movie, that a lot of it did not have to be in there, for sure. But for all intents and purposes, this is a freaking horror movie, slasher movie, whatever have you. A lot of the sequences, a lot of the way the kills are all crafted, I think are well done. There's one scene where John Kirby takes out his doctor and his wife. All that is crafted really well. A lot of good old horror POV, you know what I mean? really drawn out the tension and suspense until the kill comes. It's really great. And John Kirby, our villain here, he's unstoppable. He can heal from anything. And I just really like what this actor did, the way he moved, the way he represented himself. He's reverted right back to a primal instinct. He sees something, he goes after it, he kills, you know what I mean? That's kind of like his thing, but it's very primal. It's very ape-like the way he sits there and he just looks at people. Like you'll just see a person, you'll just see him staring at someone kind of like this, going like that. Very, very primal like, you know what I mean? And like he doesn't talk or nothing. He grunts and everything like that. Like he's almost just like an instinctive animal, you know what I mean? His body language in this is really good. He should be talked about more as a horror villain, a slasher villain, because I think he was really good in this movie. I think Toni Kalem was really good in this movie. And I'll put this out there right now. I'm not disrespecting Jamie Lee Curtis whatsoever. There's an identical scene like in Halloween where, you know, where Jamie Lee Curtis finds her friend's dead and Michael Myers pops out. There's a similar scene here where Toni Kalem finds her brother hung up and her sister-in-law dead. But the performance is great. She is convincing. Even my wife says, holy crap, she's convincing. She's screaming. She's acting hysterical. She can't even catch her breath. Rushes out the front door. And then she falls into Chuck Norris's arms as he's there. But she it's a better performance than what Jamie Lee Curtis did in the original Halloween. And I'll try to put a side-by-side kind of comparison or clips to show you guys. But I think she was way better. No disrespect to Jamie Lee Curtis, but Toni Kalem as a scream queen is not talked about enough. I think she went on to do Sopranos and stuff like that, but I know she's not really a horror actress. But she really brought the reality to this character, you know what I mean? And made us be scared. Another character I like is Chuck Norris's partner, Charlie. Charlie is this big, lovable teddy bear that, you know, Chuck Norris brings him along. He's trying to make him into a good deputy, but he's a very passive guy. He doesn't really like to fight and all that. But Chuck Norris gives him a lot of this confidence that the guy doesn't have. You know what I mean? Like where he's thought about quitting the force at one time. He goes into the story and Chuck Norris says, well, I'm glad you stick through it. You should stick through it because you'll never find out if you're made for this or not. Showing that you don't quit, stick it out and see where it leads, right? His little character arc in the movie, in the story, is where John Kirby kills him, but it allows for Toni Kalem's character, Allison, to get away. And so, like, it was his first fight he was ever in. He died, but, he saved her in a big way. You know what I mean? So, but he's just a lovable character in this movie. Where a lot of the humor of the movie's from. I think this has a great 80s horror synth score. It's one of those underrated scores that really, really works in this movie. You could almost hear the Halloween beats. You could put the Halloween score over here and it would probably just be awesome. But they did a really good job on this score, I think. I really liked it. I don't know who the composer was on this, but I think they did a really serviceable good job. I think the music really carries the film really well. And you get an end fight that's pretty badass where John Kirby and Chuck Norris go at it. Chuck Norris doing all this freaking karate stuff that's just awesome. And what makes it work, because it is Chuck Norris. So you can get away with that in this movie. You can't get away kung fu in the hell out of Michael Myers. It just, that on-screen representation, trick or treat motherfucker, does not freaking work in a Halloween movie. But because it's Chuck Norris, you can get away with it, right? And it's awesome. He throws him down a well and all that at the end of the movie. And the martial arts is great in it at the end. I love it. Love it to death, man. So that's a good positive about this movie that you get. The only really nitpicks I have is maybe we could have used a little bit more on-screen kills with this movie. A lot of the romance between Chuck Norris and Toni Kalem is, I don't know, it just stretches out a little too long for me. There's this little cheesy montage. I would have taken right out, man. It doesn't really serve the story whatsoever. You know what I mean? You didn't really need it. You know what I mean? But other than that, man, this is a solid movie. I think it needs to get a little bit more praise. I love it. I've loved it as a kid. Maybe that's nostalgia speaking, but I've Always thought to be, I've always thought this one is one of Chuck Norris's better films, for sure. So next time you're in the mood for a slasher, put on some Chuck Norris. I think you'll really dig this one, guys. I'm going to give Silent Rage from 1982 a solid B. What about you guys? Have you seen Silent Rage? Let me know in the comments if you've seen it. If you haven't, go watch it, then watch this review. We'll talk about Silent Rage, Chuck Norris films, all that jazz. We'll have a good talk in those discussions. There's your next video to watch. I thank you all for watching. My name is Jason. You're watching Backtrack Cinema. I'll see you next time, and I will see you in the movies. Cheers.